So as Pastor Meredith introduced me this morning, my name is René Mehlberg. I am the student pastor at All People's Church, mission partner with Holy Cross, and I am thankful to be here today to share a word with you and to experience worship here as well. Before I give the word, I'm going to give you a little bit more of a background of who I am, of who is this person who will be preaching with you today. And I'm a Wisconsin girl through and through. I grew up a little over 2 hours from here, between Green Bay and Wausau. The oldest of 6. I grew up on a dairy farm, small dairy farm, about 30 cows, and a town that was small, 300. Sometimes people are like, 1,200 is small. I'm like, that ain't nothing. I've lived in Wisconsin my whole life except for the last 2 years when I was in Minnesota at Luther Seminary for starting my seminary journey. I was a teacher both in the classroom and in community youth development before heading off to seminary, and I'm a big Badger fan, and yay! We might need a blue Christmas service today after yesterday. Not only I do follow football and basketball, but I'm also a big men and women's hockey fan. The men lost last night, and the women, who are ranked number 1, were shut out by number 2 arch rival Minnesota. But hope springs eternal, as there's another game today at 2 o'clock in Madison. I know. I like hearing that. Why not? I'm from All Peoples. We do lots of things in church. So with that, I'm going to end with Go Red, and then let's leave this earthly realm to the spiritual realm. And as we do that, I ask the church to please join me in prayer. God of light and love and all that is good, we give you thanks for this day, for this time, for this sacred and holy space. Help us to be the light in your world, and that we may be filled with your love, grace, and mercy to overflowing. So as we leave this place, we can share that light, that love, to everyone we meet, wherever we go. And may the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable to you, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. Amen. It is the second Sunday of Advent. Advent's the season of hope, love, joy, and peace. It is a time of expectation and anxiety. It is a time where we tell the old story of Jesus and his love. We heard about this love in the reading of 1 John. Beloved, let us love one another, because love is from God, for God is love. For God is love. Throughout history, we have seen and heard and have experienced God's love for us. Through Sarah and Abraham, through Naomi and Ruth and Boaz, through Hannah, and even through David, who is often thought of a top 10 best boy of the Bible, but he's not. David did some pretty bad things, yet God loved him. God loved him so much that God's son would be born of the house of David. This is a tale of love that is a tale as old as time and is a tale that will never end. And we continue learning about God's love for us as we work our way through the first chapter of the Gospel of Luke, today hearing the Annunciation of Mary. This past January, I had the privilege and pleasure of visiting the Holy Land with Luther Seminary. And so a year ago, I was waited in anticipation of what to experience. And now as I read and tell these old stories, I have a new perspective, I have a new appreciation, and I have visuals I can share. And this first, is Gabriel at the top of the Church of the Annunciation, next to the Sea of Galilee. Next is Mary, after hearing the news from Gabriel, replying, "Here I am, the servant of the Lord." This Mary is the United States depiction found in the Church of the Annunciation. Countries were asked to donate an artistic rendering of the Annunciation, and this artwork fills the grounds and the church. Now let's have another view both inside and out. Note the massiveness and ornateness of the church. Mary would not recognize her childhood home if she approached it on one of the many tour buses that arrives each day. She would wonder why there is an altar placed in the sunken grotto containing Mary's traditional cave home, an altar that has the Latin inscription, "Here the Word was made flesh." But she would recognize this. She would recognize the remains of this house, as it is similar to the one she grew up in. She would feel at home here in this traditional cave home, which was small and modest, consisting of 2 rooms and a courtyard with a cistern to collect rainwater. What a contrast of what stands there today. Small and modest to elaborate and ornate. And when we read the Gospel of Luke, we are brought back to that small and modest. We are given the gospel of the poor and the marginalized. Luke continually calls for Christian communities to model more fully Jesus' concern for the oppressed, the outcast, and the overlooked. And that theme starts with Jesus' conception. God blessed a poor, peasant, unwed teenager to carry God's Son into the world. God used an ordinary person to turn the world upside down. Pastor Meredith preached on it last week. God showing up in the ordinary. God showing up to Zechariah and Elizabeth. No, God showing up to Mary. And why does God do this? For God is love. But God's love isn't the type of love we often think about. Now, I want you just for a moment, close your eyes and think about love. You can open your eyes. What did you think of? Did you think of rainbows and puppies and unicorns and all of your favorite things? Or, yeah, I heard a yeah. That's good. Or did you think about maybe feeding the poor, tending the sick, helping an unwed pregnant teenager? We have become a condition to romanticize love. We want love to be easy. We want to avoid the hard things. We see love as a blessing. And love is a blessing, but the blessing God gives does not look like the blessing we often expect. Blessed is often seen as someone who is accepted, someone who is prosperous, and someone who's comfortable. But would you use the word blessed to describe someone who had a son out of wedlock who would then be executed as a criminal? Well, that's Mary. Mary who found favor with God. Mary, an ordinary girl who responded with trusting obedience to God. Mary, who courageously accepted this announcement of hope and love for all of humankind with, "Here I am." Advent is a time we must step away from the narrative dictated by culture and society of material wealth, and it's all about me, and what shopping deals I got this past week. We need to recognize the hurt and brokenness in our own lives, in our communities, and in our world. We need to take time to pause and hear this old story of God's love for you, of God's love for me, and for God's love for each and every person in this world. We are told that an unwed teenager in a small peasant town is chosen as the favored one, blessed to be the mother of Jesus. We are told this baby boy will be called Son of the Most High, and his kingdom will have no end. And we know that this baby boy grows up to love beyond our own comprehension. He loves the oppressed. He loves the overlooked. He loves the outcast. And he teaches us, he shows us, he commands us to love those different than us, to love those that others cast away and shun, to love each and every one of God's children, no matter what. And this love, this for God is love, is that real, hands-on, hard, dirty, messy kind of love. Now ponder this for a moment. How do you love the Marys of today when they come to Holy Cross or you see them in your neighborhood? Might be a poor, unwed teenage mother, or someone who just lost someone to violence, someone who is struggling with mental illness or addiction, someone whose struggles we don't know, but we know that they are struggling. Do you see these individuals? Do you notice them? How do you show Jesus' love? God shows up in the midst of the ordinary. God sent Gabriel to this ordinary young woman to carry and bear the Son of God. And her response, "Here am I, the servant of the Lord." And perhaps today, more than ever, Christians who are wealthy, who are privileged, who have resources and power need to take action. We need to take this action for when God calls, and God is calling us. We need to have our hearts full of love and our hands ready to work as we boldly and bravely answer like Mary, "Here I am, the servant of the Lord." Amen.